Hi, I'm James and this is Sword and Keyboard. Today we're going to have another look at Anthem, which I did review quite recently, back when it was in the private beta. But now that it's been released and I've had a bit of a chance to play on the trial, I'd like to revise some of my statements. Still not 100% about the game, but there's been some improvement. So, as per my previous video, and there'll be a card up here, I guess? Probably. We'll see how that works. I played the Anthem beta on a pre-order, which I subsequently cancelled due to a variety of issues, and the prime of which were crashes, loading issues, general clunkiness, and really not having a commitment to the story of the game. So those are like the four main things to complain about of the beta. Now, in fairness, they have gone back and revised a lot of that stuff, which, based on original statements at the time there, yeah, they were apparently already doing so. And I would generally like to apologise for being a little harsh. But with the context that if that's all you have to go on, you've got to make decisions as they are, and whatever they say behind closed doors, a lot of those have turned out to be false from various games companies in the past. Let us all look at Duke Nukem Forever and its repeated releases and failures for the example of what they say never being the final truth. But anyway, back to Anthem itself. I was pleasantly surprised when I picked up the 10-hour demo, the EA Access demo on Xbox One, and I've had fun. I haven't had much experience playing with people I know very much. Still trying to do a bit of persuasion to get that to happen, but even just the solo experiences and the experiences with random other players so far have been a lot more positive. Now, there have been issues still. I've had a couple of weird crashes. The loading screens are so insanely long, and Destiny suffered from that as well. And okay, I will be drawing various comparisons to Destiny as we go through this video, but there's a tendency at the moment to make games with incredibly long loading times, even on quality hardware. So, as I've said before, I'm running an Xbox One X, which should be more than enough to run any game that's being developed for the Xbox One. The loading times are still unacceptably long. It's my major gripe with the game. Now, with the time I've spent so far, it's been 2 or 3 hours, I'd guess. I've experienced a couple of crashes. As much as I don't like it, that happens at a game's launch. I would be lying if I said I hadn't played the Fallout games near launch and had crash after crash after crash. But you can get around that as long as there's a hook to keep you interested. But the loading screens, that's what drags the games out for me. When, for example, in Anthem, you've got the loading screen at the start of one of your expeditions. Then, as you transition through certain areas, so into caves, there'll be another loading screen into that cave. Then there'll be another loading screen out of that cave. Then sometimes, if you sort of got left behind a bit while your allies go and continue, you can have another loading screen there, including some really short distant teleports that happen. And, it's so frustrating. The length of time you can just end up sat there whilst your allies are in combat. You know they're in combat. It's... Oh, It's fine. It's fine. It's really not ideal, and it's something I don't want to see in games going forward. It's kind of my big sticking point on this sort of game, the interruption of gameplay. Now, there's certain games, Grand Theft Auto, for example, would be a great example, where you've got a game that does have an insane loading time, but there aren't any more loading screens, with exception of little short intermissions as you go between situations. But that's what they are, they're little short breaks. Like, you're waiting a few seconds, not several minutes halfway through a mission. That's the unacceptable stuff I'm talking about. And that is something that could have been addressed. So, and this comes as a PC gamer, so I'm used to the level of customization you get there. But knowing that it's entirely possible to lower the level of detail, and that will massively improve load times. So, to be bottled into that, almost as a signal of progress, that the loading screens get longer and longer, it feels like an unpleasant lie to be sold, knowing that we can do better. But anyway, I've spoken far too long about just loading screens. How is the gameplay, though? It's good. Now, there are some context I want to add to my previous review. So notably, like, one of the issues I encountered was being unable to get a new javelin. And the others would have been about the pace in the social space. Well, I'll come back to that actually. The hub world, shall we say. Those were two issues that kind of interrupted the flow for me. And both of those have been addressed really nicely. So, in terms of the hub world, they've enabled run, which, again, they said they would, so fair. That's good. So when you're around exploring, there's a little bit more content as well. They've given actual character to the characters. Now, most of them you wouldn't want to be, like, super close friends with. They do seem to have some pretty serious character flaws, but that's good. It's nice to see some characters who aren't just perfect in every way. Admittedly, as much as it does drive you away from the idea of, you know, the classic romance options, which still disappointed they got rid of. They're still people that you can learn to care about in some ways, or at least want to hear more of what they have to say, and that's enough to give that little hook that I was missing. So, the introduction is the first thing that drove me here, where you meet and I'm assuming never see these characters again because, okay, spoilers. Things go to hell pretty quickly. Like, the first hour of the game is absolute chaos in a good way. It's enough to sort of drive you to almost care about your own character as well as the world you live in. And then that whole story sort of drives out from there as well. I won't delve in too much just to avoid surprising you, but there's little bits of cause and effect where some of the factions become explained more than they were in the beta, which, yeah, obviously they would be. But there's at least that structure in the world that you know who's who at this point. So as I say, I'm about 3 hours in, and I've already got some rough idea of the world, how it works, at least what the basic conceits in the sci-fi are. And yeah, it works. It's a game that I want to spend more time in, and that's what it was lacking before in the demos. So yeah, it's good. As well as in terms of fixing the performance has been a great improvement, where initially loading into the Anthem demo, the issues you were presented with. So initially it was the several hours getting online to start with. There was, once you did get online, the frame rates were shuddering. Whatever console you seem to be on for that, with the exception of PC, which I feel I probably made the mistake not picking it up there. But there was just general sluggishness. Is that a word? Yeah, probably. And I kind of just took away from it. But that seems to have been fixed. They've done some really good performance enhancements. I do wonder how much of that was just turning the detail level down a bit until people stopped complaining. But yeah, that works as well. And overall, I'm just... I'm happy to see that they've fixed those last foibles. I'm yet to see if they've got a hook to keep me in the game. Now, the story so far has been pretty good. They've introduced characters at the right sort of pace to keep you interested and sort of set the scene for what you can expect to be doing for the rest of the game. But there'll be a bit of an experience, like 5 or 10 hours in, I guess, of whether or not I actually care enough. And that is the nice thing about the EA Access demo, to get 10 hours of it. I'll probably know at the end of that 10 hours whether I'm going to stick about, but I'm not too sure yet. I'm still at the point at the moment of it's fun and engaging, but yeah, it still hasn't got me totally hooked. I guess I should address the other problem I mentioned as well, of the Javelin issues. So they have fixed that. I believe that was just an issue related to the demo anyway, so not super surprising there. But I was happy to be presented with the choice of getting a different Javelin. Now the one I've gone for is the... of course I won't remember the name. The one I've gone for is the sort of elemental spellcaster type, which, again, harking back to Destiny, goes with my choice of Warlock as a main. But that, they've got abilities that are interesting. Again, I think the problems with the demo hid a lot of the fun in the game from me. So now that I've been able to use a more interesting character, able to set up those elemental combos, then to drive the combat forward in a more engaging manner, the gameplay just, it is so far improved. And even down to having the ultimate ability, like the elemental blasts firing off everywhere, it's just so much more satisfying than going in, throwing a grenade and shooting a rocket. And you can get any shooter, you can get those abilities now, and it's not... The basic class you start the game off with is not engaging. It is pretty much you are playing a shooter. Here is your gun, here are your grenades, blow things up. Which, yeah, it's all fine. It's alright, the shooting's fine, and the abilities are fine for that. But there's nothing exciting, nothing to really interest you. Versus picking up the additional classes later on, they have enough uniqueness about them to actually embed you in the world again, rather than just being sort of a modern soldier with more explosions and like an Iron Man suit. You've got space magic and giant lightning bolts and beams of ice and all of that good sort of stuff. That sort of just means you're not just playing a modern game, you're playing an actual sci-fi game that feels more interesting. And I know I'm a sucker for ridiculous technology, but screw it. It's fun. It's far more fun than the really basic types. So yeah, I do think they have got past most of the issues. I say got past. I think what's happened here is all the issues I raised previously in my last review were completely invalid in any scope other than reviewing that demo. So I stick by my original statement in the demo sucked, and as a marketing tool, it's probably lost them some sales. But the final game, yeah, it's pretty solid. It's a pretty solid loot shooter that will probably get a decent response. And given the lack of content in Destiny, I'm totally going to be trying to push people to join me in slaughtering some aliens in a new and interesting world. Anyway, I think that's enough from me. Thank you for listening again, and I hope the video was interesting. I'm trying to be as open and honest as I can when I misjudge a game, which absolutely did with Anthem. The context was unfair on everyone, I think, but yeah, definitely did make a mistake in the original, and I'm hoping that anyone watching this will understand why that happened. And yeah, so yeah. Anyway, like and subscribe and all that usual junk. If there is anything you want to see a video on, do drop in something in the comments. Otherwise, keep an eye out for any upcoming videos, and hope to see you guys again soon.